Hello and welcome to another episode of the Agency Leadership Podcast. I'm Chip Griffin.
And I'm Gini Dietrich.
And we are going to use our absolute best abilities, our top skills, and we are going to earn top dollar from today's episode.
Yes, we are.
Right after this. So today we have a question for you, and it's a question that Gini found in her hunt for a topic so that we wouldn't just sit here for 30 minutes with dead air or our charming banter. We thought we would actually give you a little bit of substance in this episode.
Maybe. We'll see. At least 3 or 4 minutes. So Daryl Salerno, who is the owner of Second Quadrant Solutions and a big proponent of financial management for agency owners, says, I have presented on financial operations or management skills more than 700 times to more than 10,000 PR professionals. In each session, I ask if anyone is doing work below their pay grade. The response is virtually unanimously yes, every time. So the question for you is, are you doing work below your pay grade?
Of course.
Yes. I am.
We all do.
I very much do not like it, but yes.
But my first question is, if Daryl has given this presentation to 10,000 PR professionals, were they not listening? Right?
Well, perhaps he asks the question. It's kind of like when I speak to PR professionals and I say, how many of you went into PR because you hate math? And 99% of the room holds up their hand. And then we talk about how data and measuring your work is not math, it's reading numbers. And so, I try to change that mindset. So perhaps it's the same kind of thing. He asks the question, he helps people understand that they are doing work below their pay grade, and that needs to change.
No, I guess what my point was simply that if he's educated 10,000 PR professionals
and people are
on
still
financial
doing it?
stuff, and there are just so many PR folks out there, agency folks out there who don't have a good handle on the financial side of things. That's all I was getting at. But Daryl, apparently I flubbed that one. So yeah.
Maybe there's, I don't
But
even know
look,
how
the
many
bottom
PR
line is
pros there are.
that we all can use more financial education, but the communications industry generally can really use it. And I think one of the key areas is this very topic, which is how are you spending your time? Because as an agency owner, there is nothing that you have more control over and has a greater impact on the business than your own time.
Absolutely.
But too often we allow other forces to direct us.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going through a process right now where I'm trying to get stuff off of my plate because I'm for sure doing some stuff that's below my pay grade. And part of the reason for that is because it was a little slow last year. And, I didn't really necessarily need the help for some of the stuff that's on my list. And now things have picked up twofold from what it was last year, and I need the help. So I'm actually going through that process of figuring out what I can delegate and get off of my plate, to a mid-level manager person on my team. Because I got a text message from a client this morning that was like, hey, can you update LinkedIn for me? And I'm like, no, I cannot. No, someone here can. It's not me.
Well, yeah, you probably don't want to have you doing the technical work. I think that would probably be the...
But,
might hit the wrong button.
that does happen where clients text me that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then depending
on don't let your clients text you.
Oh, I know.
We've had this discussion.
I do, though. They text me. I know.
I hate getting texts.
I don't.
From anybody.
It doesn't bother me.
No.
I'd rather that than phone calls. So.
Well, yeah. No, everything should go into email. Email is...
Yeah, I can't keep up with email.
For all of the evils of email, it at least allows me to put things into different buckets, and I can make sure things don't fall through the cracks. Texts, they fall through the cracks.
Yeah,
phone
you're
calls
right.
just
they
annoy
do.
me.
Yeah.
Because somebody has to figure out how you can actually flag text messages like you can flag emails. Some system so that it's not, I have to remember, oh, right, Johnny sent me something. I need to go back and look, at that particular thread to find it, right?
Right.
And of course,
Right.
and then of course there are the group texts, which are even worse because then you
Yes.
got to remember, did Johnny send it to me directly, or was
Yes.
it part of this group text
Yes.
or that group
Yes.
text? And
search and text is not great. I've tried it. It's not great.
No,
And
it's
I
terrible.
think I will admit the other problem with text from clients is they like to text after hours, which is fine. I still don't have a problem with that. But to your point, if somebody texts me on Saturday afternoon, I might not remember it on Monday morning. I might have had a couple glasses of wine by then.
Only a couple?
I'm a lightweight. Let's be real.
Oh. Okay. Well, but so we've kind of migrated a little bit off the topic here, but but fundamentally, look, there are reasons why you might be doing things that are beneath your pay grade, and it makes sense because there are some times where maybe it's something that you just really enjoy, right? There are some people I know that there are certain tasks that they really enjoy.
Sure.
And so even if it's beneath your pay grade, if you get satisfaction out of it and it's not, it's not too large a chunk of your time, it may be okay, right? Because you have to enjoy what you're doing. We always talk about that, right? There's no point in being miserable if you own your own business, right? Go do something else.
Right. Correct.
And there are times where it doesn't make sense because it takes so little time that it would actually take more of your time to manage someone doing it, right? So if it's a 10-minute task, once a month or even once a week, it may not be worth all of the effort it takes to get it off of your plate. It may be better just to keep it yourself. But there are plenty of things that are beneath our pay grade that we should be getting off our plates. Frankly, even if we're not busy. Busy is the great time to focus on it because that's when you're forced to sort of triage things as you are now. But if you think about it in these terms, if I were to get this off of my plate, how could I spend it more valuably?
Yep.
Right. So, and that's not always client work. It might be business development.
Absolutely.
It might be just general networking. It might be coming up with a new service line. It might, I mean, there are so many things that you might do with that time that could be more valuable. So I like you to think of it in terms of what's the swap that you get. So it's first you identify the things that are beneath your pay grade, but then you say, okay, if I were to swap this out, what could I replace it with? Because that delta, that differential is the real value that you're adding to the business. And so when you think about it in those terms, it makes a lot of the decisions much easier.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we've talked about this before, but one of the things I like to do for myself is create 3 lists. So the first list is all the things that I'm doing that I love to do and only I can do. The second list is all the things that I'm doing that I probably shouldn't be doing, but I enjoy, to your point. And then the third list is stuff that I hate, I shouldn't be doing, whatever it happens to be. It's beneath my pay grade. And then I end up with that last list has to be delegated. The middle list, I have to decide, is there something that will have a bigger ROI if I swap it out? And then the first list, I keep that stuff for myself because I'm the business owner and I can be selfish. But yeah, with that middle list, I always look at that. And I really am going through that process right now. I look at that middle list and I go, okay, even though I enjoy this, if I give it up or if I delegate it, what can I swap it out with that I really enjoy and only I can do? And that's how I look at it. So that eventually, and it's cyclical, but eventually I only have one list because it's everything I'm doing is stuff only I can do and that I also enjoy.
Right. And you also need to look at things not just through the lens of today. You have to look at it through the lens of where you want to be.
Yep.
Because it takes time to move things off of your plate. It takes time to restructure the work that you are doing. And so you need to be able to look out on the horizon at least a little bit and say, okay, here's where I want to be headed. And so if you're someone who loves doing client service, you'll probably map it out so that that's still a big piece of your time 1, 2, 3 years down the road. If you like doing business development, that will be a big piece of it. You can structure your time in the way that you see fit as the owner. You just have to make sure that what you're not doing is getting covered by someone else, whether that's an employee, a contractor, or a consultant, whatever. And so but you need to figure out what you want. And if you don't know what you want your day to look like, you'll never get there because you're just going to let the wind take you where it takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, looking at it from that perspective and really thinking through and I think we've talked about this as well, but what's the career I want to build for myself? I don't want to have an agency because it's just another job and I'm miserable. But what is it that I want to be able to do in this business? And how do I structure it around that? And first of all, you're going to be far happier. You're going to be more profitable, and new business development will be easier because you're enjoying yourself. You'll attract the right talent. Like, all of those things happen because you've created a career for yourself that you actually enjoy doing. Right. I think that's such a big difference.
Right. When I think, a lot of this doing work that's beneath your pay grade comes about in part because owners undervalue their own time.
For sure.
And so if you don't understand what your real value is, you can't set an appropriate rate so that you can make that comparison and you can look at that differential. Right? If you're an agency owner and you are, crafting your hourly rate by looking at yourself as a sub six-figure employee, you're making a mistake. And there are a lot of small agency owners out there who do. They view themselves as sub six-figure compensated employees, and they may.
I am not one of them.
No, neither am I. And you shouldn't be.
No,
right? Because even if you're not making $100,000 yet, that should be on your very near-term radar, because. I mean, particularly with the way salaries have inflated over the 30 years that I've been in the workforce, $100K isn't what it was when I got started.
No.
I remember my first job, I got $1,200 a month, and I thought that was just fantastic. I'm like, whoa, I am making 14.4, baby. I am rolling in it.
Woo!
But that was 1991.
Yeah.
Or 2. But anyway, yeah, it's so you need to make sure that you're valuing your time correctly, and you're setting whether you bill out hourly or not, you're setting your internally set, focused hourly rate, effective hourly rate, as something that is appropriate that you can then take, and say, if I am, $200 an hour and I can pay someone to do this for $30 or $40 an hour, that's a huge difference. That's a huge swap that I can make.
Yes.
Now, the trick is, if you do that, you actually have to do that higher value work, right? This doesn't work if you just swap one, low value piece of work for another low value piece, which sometimes happens, right? You're like, okay, because it may be, I hate doing, bookkeeping, so I'm going to pay someone to do that. But then if I take that time and I do something else that's administrative, and yes, I've gotten something painful off of my plate, but I haven't really made a big financial difference to my firm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's things like media relations. I'm not going to do media relations. I don't want to do it. I don't have a passion for it. I no longer have the right relationships to be successful at it. So it goes to my team. So, and then I swap it out for, to your point earlier, keeping the PESO model certification updated and going into schools and making sure that the certification is offered in PR and advertising and marketing programs like that. Those are the kinds of things that I'm swapping out my time for versus updating a client's LinkedIn page, which would probably take me 30 seconds to do, but I'm not going to do it.
Right. And you have to look at it in terms of what's right for you.
Yep.
And not assume that what's right for you is what's right for
any
other agency owner. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have always thrived in environments where my schedule is just littered with meetings. I like meetings. I'm sorry. I don't like pointless meetings, and we've talked about this previously, but I like, whether they're one-on-one or group. I mean, because you may have picked this up. I like to talk.
You do like to talk.
I do like to talk.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's a good environment, and I've got no problem, sitting through a day full of meetings and conversations. I mean, if I've got to be sitting there and doing meticulous, detail-oriented work and, spell checking this and that, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, I've never done that. My idea of writing is you just publish your first draft and you're done with it.
Well,
you can probably tell. But, I mean, almost every article that I publish, I have not actually read.
Oh,
I write it in one go and I hit send. That's what I do. I've done it for 30 years. It's worked out okay for me.
It's fine, right?
It is what it is. And we all need to understand what our style is, what our strengths and weaknesses are, and we need to apply that when we're looking at, whether we're doing work that's beneath our pay scale and the kind of work that we do want to be doing. Because once you tie that together, that's where you start to, as you said earlier, you get happy about what you're doing. You start generating more money. You start generating more satisfaction. And, that's everything, right? That's everything.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's two things. I think that's a hard lesson to learn that maybe you don't learn until you have a little bit of experience, age. Because it certainly was for me.
You call me old.
No, but I'm saying it was for me too. Like I hit 40 and I was like, oh, wait, I'm miserable. This is not fun. But also one of the things that I notice happens a lot with many of my clients, and it's both coaching clients and clients that we're servicing. Women tend to say, oh, well, I'll just take care of it. And it's not well, that's not true. In some cases, it is a control thing. And in some cases, it's I don't want to bother them because it's 10 to 5, so I'll just handle it. Or I don't want to bother them because it's Sunday afternoon, or, whatever happens to be. Right. And so we put ourselves in this position of being overworked and doing low value work that we shouldn't be doing. And in the meantime, our teams are like, what am I here for? Right. And so there are a lot of the women I work for. This is something I work really hard on coaching them through, is while you think you might be helping, and maybe you are in the short term, in the longer term, you're going to have really unhappy team members because you don't rely on them and you don't ask them for things. And then that is translated to you don't trust them. And whether or not that's what you think or how you feel, that's the message that you're delivering. And so that's why it's really important as well, not just for your own sanity and for your own passion and excitement and love of your job, but also for that of your team, because they see you working a ton and they see you're overworked and you're overstressed, and they're like, give it to me, let me help. And I think that tends to be a pretty female thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a large chunk of that. I think it's largely personality driven too, though. So I think that there are a lot of men with certain personalities who are that way too. Whatever it is, there are plenty of folks who can benefit from rethinking
for sure
how they're looking at it.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of my clients, when they first come to me, they'll say, I'm overworked, I'm overstressed. How do I get control? How do I I can't figure it out. And at the end of the day, it's not that difficult, right? It requires you though to do a couple of things. The first thing is you just have to stop doing that stuff, right? And I know it sounds simple, right? Just it's like Doc, I'm smoking. I know I shouldn't smoke. Stop smoking, right? Now, how do you get there?
Right.
That's
right.
Right. But the first thing you have to accept is that you need to stop doing what you're doing today. Because if you continue doing what you're doing today, it doesn't matter how many more resources you add around you or anything like that. That's not the solution. You need to start with yourself. If you do not rejigger the way that you are spending your own time, you will never be able to reshape what your team's doing. So that's step one, start with yourself. The second thing is you got to learn to let go. And we've talked about this before. You have to accept that when you delegate things, it's not going to be done exactly the same way that you do it. It may not even be up to the exact same level of quality, but you know what? It's probably good enough. And if it's good enough, you've gotten it off your plate and you've now got a big win. So stop fretting about getting it to be exactly the way you want it to be. Be happy with it being good enough to get whatever the job is done. And if you start thinking about it those ways, and then you can start thinking about how do I make the swaps? What are the specific things that I swap? But you need to start with that mindset that first you're going to stop doing that stuff, and then you're going to let go, and then you figure out what you're letting go.
When I got married, my mom said to me, I want you to remember one thing. If he makes the bed or loads the dishwasher or whatever it happens to do, and it's not the way you want it done, just remember he did it. And that's really hard for me because I'm type A and I'm a control freak and I know.
No, come on.
I'm very OCD and I like things in orderly. And Kelly made the bed the other day, and it was not the way that I would make the bed. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, you're going to leave this. And that was very hard for me. But I left the bed the way he made it. And when he got home, he was like, you didn't remake the bed. And I was like, nope, thank you for making it.
So,
but it's the same thing. Like you have to, to your point, you have to understand that people are not going to do things exactly the way that you do them. And sometimes good enough and being finished is great. That's what you need. It has to be finished.
yeah, we have a TV stand in our bedroom. And it's one of those ones that's sort of on the Lazy Susan kind of thing. So it can rotate because we have a little sitting area, so you can rotate it, where you want it to be at an angle. And so when it's straight on, I like it to be actually straight on, like at a 90. And my wife just doesn't care. She'll just like fling it back. And, if it's in the same neighborhood as 90, it's good enough. And so she figured out that was annoying me because I would walk by and whenever I saw it, I would,
and you would
get
touch it,
tweak it just to get it to 90. And so she would then just walk by and, push it out of 90. just to, but I finally learned that if I stopped reacting, if I stopped doing it, that solved the problem. So
correct. Yes, you're right.
Now I just, do it much more surreptitiously.
Right. When she's not around, you're just like,
right.
It's like Sleeping with the Enemy. Do you remember that movie?
No, I'm terrible with movies.
Oh,
I have, and generally I have no memory of movies that I've watched. So, yeah, sometimes I'll watch a movie halfway through and be like, yeah, I've seen this one before.
Yeah, I do that with books.
I remember this plot twist.
I read this book, yeah.
Oh, well. All right. Well, nobody has listened to this episode before because we're just recording it right now. I mean, I guess in the future you could listen to.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So with that, we're going to crash land this episode of the Agency Leadership Podcast. But do take a look at how you are spending your time. Make sure that you're happy with what you're doing. Make sure that you are not working on things that are far below your pay grade if you can avoid it.
Yes.
With that, I'm going to work on something hopefully that's at least at my pay grade. I'm Chip Griffin.
And I'm Jenny Dietrich.
And it depends. Thank you for listening to the Agency Leadership Podcast. You can watch or listen to every episode by visiting agencyleadershippodcast.com or subscribing on your favorite podcast player. We would also love it if you would leave a rating or review at iTunes or wherever you go to find podcasts. Be sure to check out Ginny Dietrich at spinsucks.com and join the SpinSucks community at spinsucks.com/spin-sucks-community. You can learn more about me, Chip Griffin, at small-agency-growth.com, where you can also sign up for a free community membership to engage with other agency leaders. The Agency Leadership Podcast is distributed on the FIR Podcast Network, where you can find lots of other communications-oriented podcasts. Just visit www.firpodcastnetwork.com. We welcome your feedback and suggestions and look forward to being back with you again next week.